Podcast 411, Item 238, January 7th, 2026. Jake Pentland, co-host and producer of the Roseanne Barr podcast.
Podcast411.com. Listen different.
Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rob, and this is the Podcast 411 podcast. Before we get into the interview with Jake, first, a news item. For longtime listeners of this show, you know I've been pretty open about things. Very open, maybe too open in some cases. Like when I said my wife and I were trying to have a baby on the show, which is how my mom found out we were trying. Or later on, playing my son's first heartbeats from an ultrasound. And later on the news of his birth and his brother's birth. And other personal news, including the memorial of my good friend Todd Cochran. And now it is time for more news, sad news. And that is, after 18 and a half years at Libsyn, I was told in December the company wanted to go in a different direction and my services were no longer wanted. I will miss working at Libsyn and with the friends I have there. I make great relationships over the years with big and small and everywhere in between shows and their producers. I personally recruited in Joe Rogan, Adam Carolla, Dave Ramsey, and Roseanne Barr, to name just a few. I had the fortune to talk and to get to know Louis Anderson before his passing. I worked with Mark Maron to bring him his first advertisers, and then to build up a premium offering for him, and later was given a shout out by Mark when he interviewed President Obama. Something my boys thought was so cool, especially since I let them listen a day early. I learned from Ken Ray the value of scripting a technical podcast so that you don't get the nitpickers tearing you apart for simple mistakes, but also for adding in some humor, although I will never get to the level of dry wit that Ken has achieved. I've been blessed to know Dan Carlin and see his humility and work ethic for getting a perfect episode each time. He taught me never to phone it in. Each episode is so important. Congrats to Dan on his induction into the Hall of Fame, along with some other friends I have getting inducted this year, Paul Culligan and Mark Asquith. And of course, congrats to all getting inducted this year. Yes, even you, James. Speaking of the Hall of Fame, I was able to work with some great folks at Libsyn like Dave Mansueto, Dave Jackson, Elsie Escobar, Laurie Sims, and Rob Greenlee, each of whom I've learned so much from. I was and am really proud of the podcast Elsie and I put together, The Feed, and felt it allowed us to share valuable information with producers big and small, old and new, that help them in this space, something I hope to continue again with this podcast. I was fortunate enough to be the IAB delegate for Libsyn and to meet and collaborate with so many from across the podcasting industry as we work together to get a podcasting metrics guideline to help kill off the perception that podcasting metrics were, quote, the Wild West, unquote, and bring some confidence to media buyers in what it was they were actually purchasing, and overall to bring integrity to the space. I will always have great memories of working with the Apple podcast team over the years. Scott, Pete, James, Deisha, Jake, Ted, and many others. That relationship with Apple actually started prior to me being at Libsyn, with Scott and Pete when they were listeners of Podcast 411 and sent me an Apple onesie for my then newborn son, who is now almost 20 years old. I can say with 100% conviction, the Apple podcast team really cares so much about the listener experience, and that is so important for podcasting. Thanks, Apple podcast team, for all you continue to do. I'm also very proud to have worked with Natalie, SK, and Dossie and the Spotify team to help bring podcasting to Spotify back in 2015. I was blessed to work with some of the biggest shows on the faith side of podcasting, including teams for Joyce Meyer, Gruffalo Dollar, the LDS Church, Robbie with the Truth Network, Jason with Wow God, and Nathan and Johan at Church of the City in New York, the sister church to the one I now attend. I was afforded the opportunity to attend hundreds of events, some around podcasting or others just to go there to talk about podcasting at events where people had never heard about podcasting before. I was able to meet thousands and thousands of fellow podcasters or soon-to-be podcasters at those events, and to get their business cards. Lots and lots of business cards. Yeah, if you know me, you know I kind of have a thing for business cards. I will miss my late night calls with Chuck at Microworks needing some help to get an episode swapped out, or calls from Chris Shiflett from the Foo Fighters, or getting a call that showed up as 10 zeros from the NSA, which was probably the most NSA-y thing ever. But most of all, I will miss sending that email to a new podcaster saying, here is the link to your podcast in Apple Podcast. Congratulations, you're officially a podcaster. As a wise person said to me this week, when one door closes, another opens. And on that note, if you have a door to open, you can learn more about my experiences by going to podcastingjobs.com. That'll take you right to my LinkedIn page. I, of course, look forward to seeing folks at Podfest in Orlando next week, where I'll be giving my State of the Podcasting 2026 presentation on Friday morning. And then we'll be introducing Julia Samuels for her Podcast Hall of Fame induction on Friday night. I'll be there all day Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. So if anyone would like to be a guest on Podcast 411, I'm up to doing some live recordings at Podfest. Email me and let me know if you will be at Podfest and want to set up a time for a recording. And now to the generic message. As always, your feedback is greatly desired. Please give us a call, 206-MOM-HELP. That's 206-666-4357. Or send that feedback or your show's promo to podcast411@gmail.com. And please, anyone you know that listened to the feed, tell them Podcast 411 is back. Again, today's episode, we have an interview with Jake Pentland, co-host and producer of the Roseanne Barr podcast. Without further ado, here we go. Jake, welcome to the show.
Thank you, man. Thank you, Rob. I'm excited. It was nice when you invited me. So it was nice.
I am glad to have the show back because you are one I've been wanting to have on. And we've known each other a couple of years now, and you've really done a great job with the podcast. But I got to ask the first question, and then we'll get into all the stuff. But what was the first podcast you ever listened to?
Wow, that's a really good question because a lot of people are surprised to find out that I don't really listen to podcasts very often. But the short answer is Crime Junkies.
Good one.
Yeah, and now I'm in, I don't know if I can mention it on your show, but there's...
Absolutely. You can mention any true crime, any other podcasts.
Sword and Scale has become my go-to podcast. I don't know if you've
been around a long time. Yep. That's one of the very early ones. Yep.
And he's great, and he's a great podcaster, but he's not a political guy. He does true crime, but it leaks out every once in a while. And I must say, him and I are aligned, and it's nice because I'm getting both murder and the occasional shot at my political enemies. So it's a win-win. I love that podcast.
You had another podcast before Roseanne Barr. What was your first podcast that you ever worked on?
Well, I'm a narcissist like my mother. So it was obviously called The Jake Pentland Show. And I was really proud of that. Really, really proud of that. I was doing it before a lot of people podcasted. In fact, when I started, it was back in the day when people go, no one makes money in podcasts. What are you doing? That's how long ago it was. And Adam Carolla had just turned a profit like within weeks of me starting. And it was edgy. It was out there. You can't find it. I had to hide and delete a lot of it.
Was that on purpose? I mean, did you deliberately go to seek and pull it down and hide it?
Yes. After Mother's tweet heard around the world where things were taken out of context, I'm sure we'll get into it, but I was very concerned. It was the early days of cancel culture too, and I was concerned there were things that I had said on the air that would not help her situation. Let's just say that. So during that time when the tortures were out and people were banging down the doors figuratively, I just thought it was a good idea to take it off. You can still find clips. The clip that stood up, oddly enough, is when my mom called into my show yelling at me and firing me for being, quote unquote racist, which was before she got branded with that, which is really an odd turn of irony. But yeah, I deliberately pulled them off. But I had some great guests. I had Dave Rubin back in the day, Jen Kevlar from Red State. I had quite a few pretty amazing guests. I'm proud of it. And it did well. There was no marketing. Nobody listened to podcasts back then. I actually had a rack unit I stole from the studio that my mom used to work at that could take phone calls. So I actually had landline phone calls come in. And Howard Stern at the time was my idol, and Captain Jenks pranked me on a podcast one day, and it was the highlight of my life. And I was so happy, like I'm getting like Captain Jenks. But anyway, long story short, it was I think I want to say 2011 maybe.
Okay, so yeah, very early days, pre
Yeah.
iOS 8, pre Serial, all way back when when you had to explain. Have you ever heard of this thing, podcasting?
That's what it was like. And there was a company called Blog Talk Radio where you could, it's like a stick cam. So I had joined them. So I started the podcast on my own. And then, as you know, my mom got mad at me and fired me. So I had to go underground from my own mother. And these two guys that were fans of mine said, we have an account with Blog Talk Radio. We'll give you an hour of our show. They paid for it. And on Blog Talk Radio, I got Rosie O'Donnell. And I did an amazing. You'll find that I'm very. Some say confident, others say arrogant. I think I'm somewhere in the middle. But I did an amazing interview with Rosie O'Donnell to the point where she actually, it was the first time she ever talked about her father sexually abusing her. Wow. Came out of nowhere, and it was an amazing show. That was back when Rosie and I were friends, and they got like 120,000 listens. And Blog Talk Radio put it on their front page. But what was crazy is all they did was put Rosie O'Donnell on their front page. And they acted as if Blog Talk Radio had landed an interview, and they didn't mention me. They didn't mention my name or my show or anything.
That's really crappy.
Yeah. So I left them. I was so mad.
I don't blame you.
I was always like, if you guys promote me and put me on the front page, I will deliver. I have a Rolodex, and they just wouldn't. So then I left. And I had to go underground. A lot of people don't know this, but I did an underground podcast under a pseudonym.
Did your mom even know about it?
No, I don't think she knows to this day. It was called the Anne and Frank Show, which you can get the reference. It was me at Frank and my co-host Jen Lou, who was Anne. And we said Anne and Frank live from the attic. And we did it for about a year and a half hidden.
And no pun intended or pun intended?
Unintended. Because I had felt like, my mother was censoring me, and I was very upset. Me and my mother at that time, our relationship wasn't as good as it is now, and telling me that I was destroying her brand, because the thing she was most upset about was the way I covered a couple news stories, most notably the Trayvon Martin shooting, and then there was also I believe it was Clemente, I forget his name, but there was a story about a kid who was gay in college and was quote unquote outed by his roommate on a webcam. I don't know if you remember this, and he killed himself. And that roommate went to prison. Well, when I researched it, none of that was true. In fact, the roommate knew he was gay the whole time, and they were friends. It had nothing to do with it. It was the way that the media spun it.
Wait a second. Are you trying to say the media spins things different than reality?
Wait, yeah, I am saying that. And I was saying that back in 2011. And anyway, I was very upset with my mother that she felt like I was, that's what she called me racist for, was because I'd covered the Trayvon Martin. If you remember, my mom had retweeted George Zimmerman's parents' address and got sued for it. I don't know if you know any of this.
Oh, I don't remember that piece. Okay.
Yeah. So she was political always, but she was on the other side of things. And she had felt like this was a young, innocent black kid that was murdered. And, she was like upset about it. I understood. But when you actually researched it, it told a different story. So I covered it. And yeah, so pun intended, I was in hiding from her at the Anne and Frank Show. Those of you might be able to find. But long story short, I quit podcasting back in, I think 2013. And I just went to work and forgot about it. And I don't know when it happened. Me and my mother's relationship had gotten a lot better. And, my wife, Hannah, and my mom now, like, we all live together, and they're very close. And since then, my mother and my relationship has improved tremendously. And it was actually Hannah's idea that my mom and I start a podcast together, which we did about 2.5 years ago, somewhere in there.
Yeah, almost about 2.5 years ago. Yep.
And it's been great. I mean, me and my mom now, we're as thick as thieves.
How much convincing did it take for your mom to do it?
A lot, because after she was canceled, even though she knew that it was BS and that she wasn't the things they were saying, she was worried that people thought it was true, and she was scared to go outside. And, some of her friends had turned on her. Some of her Hollywood friends turned on her. and she just kind of felt like a pariah, and she was scared to go outside a lot, and like she was literally afraid people were going to run up and physically assault her because of what they thought she did. And I got her to Texas. My daughter was born, and I told her, I said, Mom, no one real believes it. Bots on Twitter, they don't count. Maybe in LA, maybe in San Fran, maybe in New York, they believe it. But when you go to any normal city, any normal state, and by normal, I mean, not a big city, they love you. And I brought her out here, and we couldn't go 6 feet before someone pulled her over and thank her for her service and call her a patriot. And they loved her, and they thought it was horrible what was done to her. So she started to get that fire back where she wanted to say something. So it wasn't hard to convince her to talk because she loves to run her mouth. But oddly enough, it was hard to convince her to put on makeup and get in front of a camera for an hour a week. And that remained difficult for the entire 2 years. We're on a little bit of a hiatus right now, but it was more like, I got to put on makeup. I got to walk 6 feet. And I was like, Mom, you have a great show. It's got a great following. You're making money. Yes, you have to put on makeup, and work 1 hour a week. I'm sorry. And it was a fight the whole time.
Now, on your setup, so we'll get a little technical, because you kind of have, I'd say, about 4 formats for your show. There's you and your mom in the same room, and it's just the two of you. Then there's you and your mom, different location, I've seen. Then there's you and your mom and a guest all in one place, and then you have a guest remote. So kind of like 4 different scenarios. How are you doing? What are you using? What tools are you using to do the recordings when you're remote?
Well, I use StreamYard when we're remote. That was always kind of a last minute thing. And I wish, looking back, that I had been a little bit smarter about that, because I never hooked up our good cameras or our good mics into StreamYard. I just, if we were doing a StreamYard, it was because we couldn't do it in the studio. Either we were traveling or someone had canceled or whatever. And I thought, what, we'll do this raw and dirty. So we just opened our laptops and we used the laptop mic and camera. And I always felt like I should have done a better job. But oddly enough, those are a lot of times our fans' favorites. I think maybe they feel a little more gritty, because they are much lower quality, but people love them. And it's just, yeah. So the way it works is we prefer to have a guest in the studio. We live outside of Austin in Texas, and it's about an hour from Austin. So it's very hard to get someone to come here, quite frankly. And if they do come here, they got to plan around it, because it's an hour drive, hour back. And we also travel sometimes to LA, sometimes to Hawaii. We were in Florida doing a tour. So a lot of times, even though it's the nice cameras and the nice mics that I use, a lot of times the settings change. We're in different houses. We did a lot in Airbnbs. We did a lot in her Hawaii house. We did a lot in Florida Airbnbs. We do, like the RFK interview we did, that was in an Airbnb in Austin because he couldn't drive an hour to our home. So yeah. And then if we get a guest that can't come in, we'll do StreamYard. But really, the times we wing it is if a guest fell through or we can't pull off a high quality one. My mom and I will literally just open up a laptop each, and we'll go on the opposite side of the house and we'll just wing it, no prep. And oddly enough, those are when we talk to our fans, those are the ones people like the most.
How much, when you just the two of you, what's your prep work? What do you, I mean, do you?
There's none.
Okay, you just like, here's a topic and you go.
Well, we don't prep. My mom preps 24/7 in her head. She's always writing. She's a writer first. She's a stand-up comedian second, and she's a television star third. And she's always writing. And a lot of times we'll come in and I'll go, what do you want to talk about this week? And she'll tell me the 4 or 5 things she's been working on that week on her own time. But Rob, I got to be honest, a lot of times we start and I have the hit list of what she's going to talk about, and she does a whole different hour.
Well, hey, then you got the hit list for the next episode.
That's kind of what happens. So we've, even when we have guests, like I'll tell her like, hey, here's the guest, and here's what they talk about. She's like, what? I'm saying, I'm talking about the times where I book a guest that she wasn't aware of, which is probably happened of the 100 and so, what are we at, like 115 episodes or something. Probably 30 times that's happened. And she doesn't even know who we're talking to until 5 minutes before. And I have found from a producer standpoint that they would probably tell you never to do that, but I like it. I just say, here's what they talk about. Here's what they believe. Here's 2 or 3 of their best tweets. And that's 5 minutes before we roll.
And if you get a good guest that really is passionate about it, doesn't, I mean, you had Tim Pool on, you had him there at the house, and it appeared to be.
At our house.
Yeah. And I know that you guys your mom went on his show as well. And so you had to go out to his studio on that as well. But yeah, someone like that, Tim is so used to talking multiple hours every day, multiple shows.
Well, that's kind of our general approach to podcasting, is that if you put an interesting person in the chair, you really don't have to prep. You should always prep. If anyone's listening that wants to get into a podcast, like, don't listen to me. You should prep. You should know what you're doing. I can only get away with it because my mom's such a genius, and her mind just works all the time. And then the guests we find are usually pretty profound, and there's not much producing on that. And you just turn the mics on and let them go.
Was there any guests that you haven't had on yet that are on your list, your bucket list?
Well, yeah, a lot. We had to take a hiatus. So I was originally just going to take a week off. It's gone now. I think we haven't done one in 3 or 4 weeks, which I also don't suggest because you drop a lot of momentum, but there's reasons for it that I can't really talk about. 95% of the reasons for it are really good news. Mm-hmm. Like, we are working on something that fans of my mom are going to be excited about. I have to hold on.
The teaser.
Well, I said she was a writer first and a comic second and a TV star third. 2 or 3 of those might be. We're in the midst of 2 or 3 of those, and it's not the middle one. We are in production for something really exciting. So that's part of the reason we can't do it, because she's working, 10, 12-hour days.
Yeah, sometimes a podcast has to take a backseat to something else.
I was going to try and do the podcast and continue the podcast. I'm really good friends with Drea Di Matteo. I don't know if you know who she is.
Yes, I do. I've been talking. She's getting ready to launch as well.
Okay, good. Yeah, I put her in touch with you guys because she wants to, but she was going to actually fill in for my mom while this project came up, and it was going to be me and Drea, and that still might happen. But we're figuring it out. And then the other thing is just, my mom's health is not amazing right now. Her blood pressure is a little high, so I want to keep her calm. She's working hard. I don't want to add stress. I mean, she's fine. She's not in danger or anything, but her blood pressure is high enough that at the end of the day, like, the podcast is not as important for her health. And finally, just the landscape of the world and what's going on, we feel like it's kind of a good idea just to touch grass a little bit more, get outside a little bit more, be with our family a little bit more, and hopefully what's going on online will mellow out, because between you and I think it's beyond repair and terrifying. And
your interview with Tim Pool back in October. He was like, "We're already in a civil war." He was like, "We just don't realize it."
I think he's right. I loved him, and he in the last 2 weeks has really stepped up, calling out Candace Owens, for instance, and he's taken a lot of heat. But he's right. And, he's calling a lot of people on our side of things cowards for not doing it. And there's definitely, whether there is a civil war in the country, there's definitely a civil war happening within the right wing right now. And, my mom will post something very intelligent, and it's like, "Shut up, Jew." That's like every 3 or 4 of those for everything. It's like, we're talking about Trump, or it's not. And it's just, after a while, it's just this like, why are we getting up every day and trying to spread a message when clearly the internet is got rot. It's got a tumor of some kind in it. And we're kind of backing off a little bit and seeing if that mellows out.
Understandable. Yeah. And you combine that with also having something in production. I was talking to Aisha Tyler, and I was talking to her recently, and she had stopped her podcast when we were talking, and I said, what was the main reason? And it was, ultimately, she was so busy that she couldn't get her schedule to work with the guest's schedule that she wanted to have on. And it was like, 2 ships passing in the night, but she just got to the point where she could no longer get a guest on board that had the time of, the day of the week that she could, that 1 hour she had to do an interview. So I understand that it can be really difficult if you're really busy.
It is. And busy or not, it's difficult even if you're not, getting two calendars synced. And also, you need to have a good 60 to 90 minute window, which you might be able to get someone, like.
Lucky for me, I had some free time this week.
But we had, like, Vivek was on, we were at Turning Point. This is one of our early interviews. And, he was like, yeah, I'll be there. I can give you 60 minutes. And then he showed up 25 minutes late to the interview. And then he's like, I got 35 minutes.
Oh my.
So we did it. That happened with Megyn Kelly too. She gave us like 30 minutes. And for those listening that maybe don't know the ins and outs of podcasting, but typically, if you sell ads for an hour-long show, you want to hit that hour mark. You don't want to sell ads on an hour show and then do a 30-minute. It's just, it's bad practice. And also it'll be wall-to-wall ads and you want to space it out for people. So with like Megyn, I don't even know if we ever aired that interview, or sometimes on those we'll do the interview and then me and my mom will talk for 30 minutes and I'll cut them together. But yeah, we've dealt with some high profile people, and they're you can't tell, like Tulsi Gabbard, for instance. This is before she was DNI, but she was working there. You can't say, no, you got to stay here for 15 minutes. I sold,
Yeah, no.
The TWC, they leave. There's nothing you can do about it.
Do you do most of the booking, or do you have someone that's helping you?
I do everything. I do the booking, I do the editing, I do the filming.
The uploading, the encoding.
All of it. As you know, I've called you in a panic quite a few times back in the day. But yeah, I do it all. And I love it. I love podcasting. I think it's the greatest thing ever. My favorite movie, one of my favorite movies growing up, it's an interesting story for you. I don't know if you'll like it, but did you ever see Pump Up the Volume with Christian Slater?
Yes. Way long time ago, yes.
Oh, it's a pirate radio movie. But so my mom at the time back then was married to Tom Arnold, the great Tom Arnold. And I say that facetiously. I hate that guy.
No.
Yeah.
No.
And really real stickler for rules. To his credit, he was like 30 years old, and me and my sisters were just not disciplined, not well. My parents were hippies, and we were terrible children. I'll give him that. And he felt that structure would help, and he was probably right in theory. In practice, not so much. So it was a lot of hard years, but he clamped down on rules. We had rules framed and posted on our doors, which was always fun.
No, we didn't. No way, really?
And some of the rules were like, you can't wear black, because my sisters at the time were like what they called back then death rockers, which now would be emo.
Oh, that's how goth is. I used to date lots of goth girls back in the day. Yeah,
my sisters, this was even before goth. This was like 93. But yeah, it's the same thing. It was death rockers, but it was goth. They listened to The Cure and Jesus and Mary Chain and whatnot. So they were all dressed in black, and I was like a normal kid. Like I was a little boy, I liked sports, but I wasn't allowed. I could not wear black. I couldn't wear a black T-shirt. Didn't matter what it said. You could not wear the color black. Like, so he took it really far, and then it had other things like I will shower daily and clip my toenails. And
okay, wait, showering daily is not a bad one to have.
It's not bad. And again, I'm not saying I was mad at Tom for making me shower. I just didn't appreciate it when I'd bring like my high school girlfriend over, and then posted on my door was like, I will wash my body. I will clip my nails. It made me look like a slob.
That would be pretty embarrassing.
It was very
to your room, and then she's like, "Why do you have to have a rule of showering every day?
Why does it say on the wall that you will wash your body?" Yeah, it was embarrassing. But anyway, why was I talking? Oh, so Tom had these rules. I couldn't watch R-rated, couldn't swear, couldn't do all this stuff. But for some reason, to his credit, he said the only movie you can watch that has swearing and is inappropriate is Pump Up the Volume. I don't know why, but I couldn't watch TV. I couldn't, I couldn't wear black. I couldn't do it, but I could watch Pump Up the Volume. And that movie, I don't know if you remember, it was pretty edgy. Like his name was Happy Harry Hardon on it, and there was a lot of references and phallic talk, and I was really surprised. But for me, it was cool. It was like my get out of jail free card. I could watch it anytime. I had it on a VHS tape. I watched it probably 100 times. And I just really appreciated the idea of pirate radio. And Good Morning Vietnam was another one I liked. Howard Stern was my idol. And I just thought, like,
I had a guest on the show many, many years ago, Jeff Pulver, who did pirate radio. And he was on the interview with me, and he was talking about doing pirate radio on Long Island in the 1980s. And then after the interview, he emails me. He's like, "You got to take the interview down. I can't believe I admitted doing pirate radio. I'm so worried." I'm like, "Jeff, the statute of limitations is like 5 years. You're fine." It was like 20, 25 years ago, 30 years ago.
yeah,
But he was all paranoid. I'm like, "No," I guess I told him, "No, I'm not going to take it down. Like, just chill."
good for you. Yeah, for people that don't know pirate radio, it was highly illegal. I mean, you're literally pirating the airwaves. But it was so cool, and that's kind of what podcasting is. So one of the reasons I was such an early podcaster was because I saw it as pirate radio. Like, oh my God, we're not an FM, we're not an AM, we're not going the traditional means. These are people that you buy a microphone and a computer and you do it at home. And to me, that just felt so edgy and so raw, and that you could say whatever you wanted. There was no corporate structure. I mean, you were a pirate. You were literally.
Unless you're in the UK, then you can go to jail.
Yeah, that's true. But I just love that. And, I think now, podcasting obviously has become a $1 billion industry, and influencers and the whole thing. And now, there's people doing it that are much better at it than I ever was. But I don't know if they have the same spirit that I got into. And I think a lot of them, they're chasing clicks, and they have their own algorithm, like they do their own data research. Like, Candace is a perfect example. She knows what gets her more listens, and therefore she leans into that. And to me, that's no different than like a corporate DJ, like a record spinner back in the day. Like, if you're chasing the numbers and the demographics, you're not really telling the truth. You're not really a pirate. You're a sellout.
I mean, that's all of YouTube, isn't it, though? Isn't that what people do on YouTube? All right, they release 4 episodes, and one of them gets more, and they look at what was different on that one, and then they do more of it, and then you got the people from outside the US that are paying for certain things to go up, so then that causes the wrong things to get amplified and more of that bad content created. That's why I like podcasting.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't have that algorithms stuff. It's the YouTube side.
It is. And also, if you're really like someone that likes the art of podcasting, then what you're thinking is like, hey, I just want to get out and say what's on my mind, and I will find my audience, or I won't. But I'm not going to change what I'm saying because the audience is out there. And even if it's, like my original podcast, I think I got like 4,000 views, like on average, but I retained those people. And I was so proud of that. Like, the numbers weren't good as far as how many people were listening, but the same 4,000 people came back every week. When people listened, they never left. And I was more proud of that than anything that I, even now, like, I love that retention.
4,000 listeners an episode puts you in the top 7 or 8% of shows. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it's actually a really good number. Most shows never get close to that.
I had no idea. Well, Blog Talk Radio, man, if they would have just picked me up, I could have been something. I could have been a contender.
Could have been a contender. Yeah, you would have been one of their top shows. You would have been in the top like 2, 3, maybe 2% of the shows on Blog Talk at that level. Yeah.
Oh, look at that. But yeah, I never, that's one thing about me and my mom, producing, guest booking, like behind the curtain of the podcast. Me and my mom, and obviously my mom is 99% the host. Whatever she wants to talk about, that's what we talk about. And she doesn't, she's way past, she's not an influencer. She's not trying to grow online. She's already an established name. And now it's just a place for her to go vent. And I think that's another reason people like our podcast, the people that like it, is that it's not designed to be commercial or popular or bend to an algorithm. It's just a woman in her house with her son, and just saying what's on her mind. It's real. It's not manipulated. It's not. I mean, obviously we want people to listen, but we took huge dips in numbers. There was a lot of times, our positioning now is definitely not popular, right? Like the last 6-7 months, the position that we've taken on world events is definitely not what the algorithm promotes. Let's just say that. And we've seen
unfortunately.
huge drops in our numbers, and we don't care. Like, we don't come and go, oh my God, we got to choose something different. We got to change it. People are dropping like flies. We're like, screw it. You know, they don't like it. They don't have to. They don't have to listen. Like, this is what we want to talk about. This is our show. This is our house. And we'll just keep doing it.
So you've talked a few conspiracy theories over the years on the show. What's some of the favorite ones that came true?
Well, for me, my favorite ones are the ones that my mom believes in that I think are insane. Like, conspiracy theories that most people are into are, well, let me just put it this way. If it's a conspiracy theory I believe in and my mom believes in, those are fun to talk about. But for me as a producer, it's way funnier if she goes and talk, like, she's really big in the Antarctica one, right?
Yes.
Nazis are in Antarctica and they have a dew machine and, you know, they can make earthquakes all over the world. She was heavily into Q. And I was into some of the Q stuff early on. I definitely was into Pizzagate. That's probably the one that I went a little too far on. But my mom has lapsed me every time on craziness. Like, she really thought Trump was the acting president the 4 years of Biden. Like, she really believed that.
Wait, Trump?
You don't know that one? No, Trump was. We had Derek Johnson on our show.
Okay. No, I missed that one. I'll have to go look at. Yeah.
Laws and orders. If that's a big thing in the Q community, it's insane. She gets mad at me when I make fun of her, but like, she really thought Biden, you know, was like all actors. And, you know, I guess the conspiracy theory was for the Trumpers that it had to get, you know, to drain the swamp. It was so hard to drain the swamp that instead of doing it, you had to show the people how bad it was. You had to educate the American public. So it was like this big sting operation. And I know some people that are really high up, let's just say in politics and in this administration, that believe this. And I always thought it was absolute insanity. Like, no, we don't need to show the people. Like, if you want to oust a politician as dirty, just oust them. Release the files. Don't have to do this whole elaborate sting where, you know. Anyway, that one was the most insane. So yeah, Trump was actually the acting president the 4 years of Biden. Biden was just the president of Washington, D.C., which is a corporation. Therefore, Biden was the face, but Biden was in on this. And his job was to be so inept and do such a bad job as a president that the American public would see just how corrupt things were. And then Trump would come back in 2024, the conquering hero, which, I mean, some of it came true. And I am not a fan of Biden, so I can see why people would spin it off. But I think Trump is way too narcissistic to hand over power to someone else and work in the background. I don't see him being that kind of person. So that one's my favorite of my mom's. The whole Q Anon thing, you know, my mom got really into that. And I was like, well, it's not true. It's already been disproven. None of the stuff he said was coming true. And then the next move the QAnons had was to say that there was a 4-year delta. Are you aware of this one?
No. Okay. Explain. Yes. Explain this one a little
So
bit.
a Q drop, 4 years ago would be like, I don't know the Q drops, but I'll just give you, I'm making this up. This is actual Q drop. But if it's something like, General Flynn's going to expose MTG tomorrow.
Okay.
So it never happened, right? Well, 4 years later, let's say MTG got in a little bit of trouble and Flynn did a text or a tweet saying she's an idiot. And again, I'm making this all up. None of this happened. Just to give you an example. That was part of a 4-year delta, meaning the Q drops were actually 4 years ahead of time. And they were so well planned that a lot of people mistakenly thought the Q drop meant what was happening now, but instead it was actually telling you the strategy for 4 years in the future. So it's called a 4-year delta.
All right.
Yeah. And my mom would literally look me in the face and say, it's a 4-year delta. You don't get it. So one of the reasons I think our podcast does so well is because it's a mother and son, and I can say things where other people want. So I always make fun of her for the 4-year delta and the Q stuff on air. And she has a good sense of humor. She's not like one of those people that if she believes in something, you tell her it's not true, that she's going to get mad. She'll think it's funny. So I tease her a lot. If you haven't listened to our show, if you go back, you'll see a lot of times it's
I know you rag your mom good. Yeah.
all of the time because it's so ridiculous. And I think it's also relatable. Again, as a podcast producer, I'm always thinking like, what's going to grab an audience? I think everybody has a mom or an aunt or an uncle or a sister or whatever that's pretty deep in the conspiracy world, but they're lovable. They're not. It's not someone you worry about. You don't like. You'll let your kids around and they're not dangerous, but you do think, oh my God, they're kind of an idiot. And I think we all have someone in our family like that, and I think we all want to tease them. And that's why I bring that.
Yeah, I try to keep my conspiracy theories to Star Wars.
What's that?
Oh well, I was always a big Jar Jar Binks was a Sith Lord.
Oh, I know that one. Yeah.
Yeah, and I've had that since the beginning. So my kids grew up watching Star Wars, and I'm just like, and they were like, when they finally got to meet Jar Jar, because I didn't let them actually see episode 1. I had them do. We did 4, 5, 2, 3, 6.
Oh, okay. That's smart.
Because I didn't want them to have to worry about Trade Guild Federation stuff when they were young. And so once they got addicted to the show, then we went back and watched episode 1, and I really got into like, Jar Jar here is the Sith Lord. Here, look, right? Here's why. They're afraid of him. They're this, that. And then when Lego came out with their Darth Jar Jar, it just proved my theory all along. and so I have it on my desk. I have the little Lego Darth Jar Jar I bought my kids the Dark Millennium Falcon, but I took Darth Jar Jar.
That's hilarious. Well, conspiracy theories are fun. My father and I, oddly enough, we get along, but I wouldn't say like we're the closest father and son of all time. Like, our sentences are probably 3 or 4 words a piece and like a half hour of silence after. We've always had that. But we got really into the JFK assassination when I was a teenager. Like, so into it that me and my father on my Christmas break, when he had custody of me for that trip after him and my mom divorced, we went to Dallas and Dealey Plaza, and that's what I did in like junior high school. I was obsessed with it. We read every book, we had every theory, and we were heavily invested in that.
I actually have a podcast I have on the side called JFK Files.
Oh, wow.
And so I am also a JFK conspiracy person. And I was on the rifle team in high school, and my rifle coach was a marksman sniper for the Marines in Vietnam.
Wow.
And he's just like, nope, no way you can hit that. Nope, couldn't do that.
No, especially Oswald, because Oswald was
he wasn't a good shot. No.
Yeah, no, we got really into that. I can't remember why I was bringing that up, but maybe I was going to say conspiracy theories can be like a bonding thing. Maybe it's where I was going. I love them.
Hey, you're saying you and your dad really got into that back then. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's what. So, but now, our politics have changed. And I don't know if we had Shane Cashman on our show. He was the one that has the audio of LBJ's hitman talking about killing Kennedy. I thought it was like the biggest story ever. Alex Jones broke it, and we had him on. He's a friend of mine. And the tape to me sounds 1,000% real. And every report we've seen, it's been authenticated, but it never really took off. But after listening to that interview, which you can check that episode out on our show, I mean, to me, I think LBJ killed him now. I really do. And that's one of the reasons I'm really mad at Candace, because it's like she's doing this whole thing about it's the Jews and Israel. And it's like we literally had a huge break in the case, and files were being released and the audio came out, and it looks more and more like LBJ was involved, and she doesn't even talk about it.
Well, she's going down her algorithmic rabbit hole. Anyway, I'm trying not to say too much there, but I'm disappointed with her and a couple other people on that. But anyway.
Me too. Because again, I think going back to podcasting as a pirate radio thing, like what makes it fun is that you are going to tell the truth. You're going to go around that corporate veil. You're going to say what's true. You're not going to worry about the powers that be. You're going to speak truth to power, like that whole edginess to it. Like I love that. That's what stand-up comedy is. That's why my mom was into stand-up. Like I'm from a rebellious family. We believe in saying things no matter what the pressure is, and to use that to push an agenda for clicks that's not true. It's really a sad state, because now all podcasts are going to take the hit because no one's going to believe us anymore. It's like, oh, you just go on there, you get a click, and you get your algorithm, and you go on, and you get to the top, and you make money. Like our edge is gone.
At one point in time, weren't you de-algorithmed on YouTube for supposedly your mom supposedly being anti-Semitic back, I guess, when being anti-Semitic was in their algorithm a bad thing.
Yeah, it's pretty funny story. That's my favorite thing about my mother, honestly. I'm also a fan of my mom. Like, objectively, I'm a huge fan of Roseanne Barr. I would be regardless if we were related or not, because
How could you not be?
exactly, she's the coolest, and I really feel that. And so yeah, she went on Theo Vaughn's podcast. He was going to do ours, and she made a hilarious joke. She was saying, and it's so funny. Like, whenever my mom crossed that line and pissed off the wrong person in power, since that moment, they've had eyes on her. And I mean, I know, I'm not going to say who, but people wanted to punish her for what she said in her politics. They were very upset. They felt betrayed because she.
Well, that's the thing. There's a certain side where there's a purity test.
Yeah.
And if you miss one question on 864 questions, if you miss one of them,
yeah,
you're banished.
100%. And they did that to her, and then they rewrite your history. I mean, it's disgusting. But again, I have a great saying that I use all the time, which is people who don't matter. And I don't give what anyone say about her. So she's always kind of upset people. She was in a Jewish magazine. My mom's always been Jewish. A lot of people don't know. A lot of people think she's like, my favorite comments now are like, oh, now you're a Jew. Now you're going to side with Israel, you stupid Jew. How dare you become a Jew? And it's like, she's always been Jewish. The Roseanne Connor character, I guess, technically wasn't Jewish because I guess the husband worked in drywall.
It's very simple. If you want to be funny, you either have to be Canadian or Jewish. It's just a given.
It is true. But anyway, so they a lot of people didn't know she was Jewish, because most of her fans obviously are from the sitcom. And we didn't talk about religion on that show. It was a family show, and it was probably more Gentile than anything. But anyway, long story short, she did an article in a magazine called Heeb, Heeb, which was a Jewish magazine that was really artsy and edgy and cutting edge. And she posed as Adolf Hitler and had these gingerbread cookies that were burnt in an oven. It was a Jewish magazine. I think it was New York or San Francisco, and it was edgy. Like, again, we're pirate radio. Like, we don't care. Edgy used to be cool, by the way. For the younger listeners out there, it used to be cool to be edgy and be offensive. Like, that meant you were like a rock star.
And in the background, you have that. You've got multiple Lenny Bruce albums in your background. I love that.
That's my mom's hero. That's why they're in there.
Quick side, and I'll let you back a story. My parents both graduated from the same high school as Lenny Bruce.
That is
so they both went to Mepham High School. So I grew up knowing who Lenny Bruce was because he was a celebrity and like the only one from Mepham High School. So my parents would say, "Hey." Now, sadly, he passed. But I love Marvelous Miss Maisel because they did such a great homage for him.
I haven't seen that, but he is. It's sad that not enough people know who he was. My mom actually has the largest collection of his recordings. She bought them at the height of her fame. She spent a lot of money on them.
Nice.
Anyway,
we sidetracked there.
Anyway, long story short, so she did this magazine. So then she was canceled for that because it was offensive to Jews, even though she was a Jew. They're like, she's mimicking. She's dressed as Hitler with gingerbread cookies in the oven. Like, that's so anti-Semitic, which we thought was hilarious because the magazine was an edgy Jewish magazine, and it was actually the article was about the domestication of the Holocaust and how people weren't taking it seriously, but it didn't matter. So fast forward, she goes on Theo Vaughn, and it was a great show. Everyone loved it. We shot it at the mothership. It was his podcast. So I just sat in the crowd. It was just the four of us, my mom, Theo, his producer, and then me. And there was no one else in the entire mothership room. And it was amazing. And she had made a joke. She's like, yeah, Biden got 81 million votes. Like, clearly he got 81 million votes. Like, there's no way he didn't. It was like totally sarcastic. And then she's like, of course, the Holocaust never happened either. No Jews died in the Holocaust. And it was a funny little bit. Everyone got it. The show did well. It was out for like a week or week and a half. And some horrible person, I don't know who they were, claimed that my mom was now a Holocaust denier. And Theo's show got pulled off YouTube. It was demonetized, and he went on X and he was like, I never got a warning. I'm a partner with YouTube. My show does really well for them. I've been demonetized. It went on Twitter at the time, X, and Elon's like, bring it here. There's free speech and comedy on Twitter. And that post blew up. Like millions of people viewed it and retweeted it. The funny thing was no one mentioned Mom at all on it. Elon never did. Theo never did. It was about what a hero Theo was and how great Elon was. And like always, for some reason with my mom, I don't know if it's because she's a woman or what, but she was kind of left out of that conversation, even though it was her joke that got demonetized. And since then, Theo Von has not come on our podcast and he won't return calls. And, at the end of that taping, he came up to me. He's like, hey, I know I owe you one now. Call me. I'll come do it anytime. And I can't get him on the phone. He feels like she cost him his channel, although he did get remonetized. It was a short strike. But, as far as he's concerned, we don't exist anymore. And I'm kind of bitter about it, if you can't tell.
Well, a little bit. I noticed kind of, sort of there in between the lines.
And now, because she is actually a Jewish person and pro-Judaism, now she's getting, we haven't been demonetized necessarily, but like I said, our numbers are way down and we get a lot, the comments aren't as nice as they used to be. Everyone's like, you're a legend. Now it's like, screw you, Jew bitch. And it's really brutal on there. And it's just interesting. And the reason I'm telling you all this, and I'll wrap this up because I talk too much, is that my mother for now 40 or 45 years has been the same person, same politics, same ideals, but the landscape of America has shifted so many times and the media has changed and the way in which people respond that it looks like she's sort of this ever-changing frenetic thing in the middle that doesn't know, and she's kind of bipolar and she changes her mind all the time. But the truth was, she's the one thing that's been constant and everyone else has gone crazy. There's the line when she did Jimmy Kimmel after she moved and started supporting Trump. He said, what happened to you, Rosie? Like, you used to be a liberal, you used to fight for gay rights, and now you're supporting Trump. And she said to him, I'm the same person. It's not me that changed. It's the left that changed. You all went so crazy. She has been that the whole time. And I'm now, that's what started this. I'm a huge fan of my mom's, that if you really look at her career and her personality over time, you can actually use her almost as kind of like a litmus test to what's going on in America around her by the way in which her jokes are, how they're responded to.
You can see it with Bill Maher, the same thing, right? And he's been consistent. Your mom's been consistent, but they're getting ripped apart by the far left, and their comments haven't changed. And I was talking to someone the other day, and they're saying like, who do you look up to? And I go, Ira Glasser, and they go, oh yeah, I like his podcast. I'm like, no, Ira Glasser, ACLU, wrong Ira Glasser.
Oh yeah, they're involved.
They don't get the free speech thing, and it really has changed in the last 5-6 years to the way the left some on the left have really run away from free speech,
and the free speech movement started on the campus of Berkeley in the 60s, and to see those people that my mom's been an activist for so long, come along and she decides to support Trump in 2016, and by then they were like, well, we're going to ruin her career and cancel her and censor her and not let her have free speech. It's like, wait a minute, I thought we were all for free speech. And I tell you all the time, I am a free speech absolutist. Even
same
like,
here.
with now, like, I don't want, people don't always understand this, but I don't want, the people that I don't like now, let's say, for example, are who I view as like Nazis. But I don't want Nazis to be afraid to talk. In fact, quite the opposite. If you censor people, well, then Nazis will go underground and they'll meet in their basements or their militia groups or whatever it is Nazis do on their Saturdays. I want to know where they are. I want them to come out and go, hey, I'm a Nazi. I'm at this address. I'm at this city. These are my beliefs. Like, I want a spotlight on them all the time. That's the part of free speech that nobody ever talks about. It's not just because it's an American ideal, but why would you want someone that's the antithesis of your country and furthermore a danger to you? Why would you want them to be hidden where you can't see them and you don't know where they are? Like, I don't want a monster under my bed. I want to see the monster coming to my front door with lights on and I'm armed. And that's the thing we have to protect, free speech. And, yeah, to answer your question, yes, my mom did get Theo Von demonetized. We also got demonetized during COVID because my mom made a joke about the COVID vaccine. And it was obviously a joke, and they demonetized us for 1.5 years over it. for medical misinformation.
Yeah, I mean, there was a point where if you said it came from the lab, right? If it's a lab leak, that you would get pinged. And like now, everybody, pretty much most reasonable people now go, yeah, obviously it was a lab leak.
Yeah, I believe it's been proven at this point.
Right. Yeah. The FBI and the CIA both say that, and multiple other agencies. It's like, and I think Jon Stewart said it best. Let's see, you have a virus.
Yeah.
That you have a viral lab that says Wuhan coronavirus lab, and now you have a coronavirus that leaked from the same city.
Yeah. And he could say that because he was Jon Stewart. And that was a really funny clip. But yeah, if we said that on our side, that was medical misinformation, quote unquote, you were getting people killed. We actually got banned because my mom's joke was, and it's in her stand-up, was, I know a lot of liberal women were really upset at the overturning of Roe v. Wade. And I don't know why, because most liberal women are vaccinated. And since you got vaccinated, you're now sterile and aren't going to have children anyway. And it's a funny joke. I mean, it's edgy, but it's funny, right? That's why we got banned for medical misinformation, that joke.
Did you ever see the clip of Heather from Juicy Scoop, where she's like on stage going, I'm double vaxxed, double boosted, and I still get my period, and then she collapses.
It's one of the funniest things ever. Yeah, she cracked her skull. That's Heather McDonald. She was actually on my old podcast back in the day. Yeah.
I sell ads for her.
And that the conspiracy theorists took it. But I think now, even Piers Morgan, I just saw it last week. Someone called him out for pushing the vax. And it's like, I was wrong. So, people came around. But anyway, I don't want to turn this into a COVID vax discussion. I just resented that we got demonetized by YouTube for a joke.
Right now, your podcast video, where is your first? I know you're on Rumble. Is that your primary? Is that is that where you say is your primary location for the video today?
100%. So after we got demonetized by YouTube, right, our first episode opened up to like 250,000 views the first time, and you're not always going to get that every week. So I wasn't upset when the numbers dropped, but we went from 250,000 to like 30,000 on YouTube. But at the same time, which I would say, okay, people don't like your podcast, it's bombing, fine. But during that time where we went down 80%, our subscriptions had quadrupled. And I'm not a algorithmic expert, but I'm thinking if you gain 400,000 subscribers, your numbers, and there's the only thing we were putting on YouTube. We weren't doing it else but the podcast. How there'd be more subscribers than listeners was very odd to me. And I got in touch with someone at YouTube, and I got pretty high up. I used all my connections, and I asked him point blank if there was fudging the numbers, and she would not admit it. She said, no, that's your thumbnails aren't good enough. You should try a different color. And I'm like, well, when I go on Rumble, we're back up to that 250,000 number. So that's very suspicious. And, now I think we get around 30 or 40,000 on YouTube. So anyway, to answer your question, yeah, Rumble is our place because they don't lie and hide our views and chat and demonetize us. They're a free speech platform, and I love them. They've been great.
Any idea when the show's coming back?
Well, I'm talking to my mom about maybe doing one tonight, because I don't know if you saw the Nick Fuentes. He responded to her and called her a fat bitch, and that she needed to be put in her place, and that the God is Christ, and basically Jews are horrible people or whatever. And I know if I showed my mom that clip, she'll look at me in the eyes and say, "Turn the cameras on. Let's go." So I've been holding that clip. She hasn't seen it. I just saw it last night. So what I'm going to do probably tomorrow is be like, hey, if you want to do a podcast, watch this. And then I'll probably get a 7-hour recording after.
I'm looking forward to that. That will more than likely be out before this episode, because I think this one, we're recording on the 22nd. I'm probably going to release this on the 30th.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they told me the first rule in podcasting, I think it was you that told me, is consistency. Like, don't, if you're going to do a weekly show, do it every week, no matter what. And we did. We only missed one episode, I think, in the first year and a half. But like I said, my mom's 72 or 73 now, and she's working 12-hour days. It's too much. But we'll be back.
Well, maybe you can get Drea in there, talking with her. She's a hoot. And I actually said to someone, I said, she's like a young Roseanne.
She is. And spoiler alert, this project, I'm telling you, Drea's in it.
Nice.
She's
Okay.
my mother's daughter. And my mother's love affair is Randy Quaid. We filmed a love scene last week that is honestly the funniest thing I've ever seen in my life. And we are either, I look at people all the time when I look at the dailies, I go, we are either making the greatest show of all time or the worst. And I don't know which, and there's no in between. But what I saw last week, I'm telling you, we are definitely making something.
I am looking forward to that. Can you share a name yet, or is that coming?
No, well, here's the thing. So we are doing this project, and we are also trying to build the distribution platform on which it comes out on. And we don't want to, pardon this phrase, by the way, I just found out this phrase was dirty like 4 days ago. I had no idea, and I said this on multiple business meetings for years, but we don't want to blow our wad.
Yeah, that phrase.
I had no.
Yeah. I mean, I know whether some people take it to mean a gambling phrase.
That's what I just thought it meant. Like, whatever you're holding, you don't want to give it up too soon. So I literally I can't tell you how many times I've been in high powered meetings where I've used that, and I had no idea. But anyway, we don't want to blow our.
Well, if they're high powered Hollywood meetings, that's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. Well, you have to say blow our wad on children, then it's fine.
I didn't go there. Okay.
No, but so anyway, we don't. This is independent, and marketing is going to be all independent, and a lot of it's going to be social media. We don't have the budget to do this right. We're not going to be able to buy billboards and bust up. So we're being very careful. But I think some people know. I mean, Randy Quaid, I keep telling him, please stop posting, and then he posts he doesn't listen to anybody. He's a lunatic.
Well, hey, there's some people you want them to post and they won't post anything, right? So at least you know that once the time you really want him to post, he should be all over it.
Well, one of the guys that plays her son-in-law is, it's a mixed race family, and he posted it last week, and his comments were brutal to the point where I actually pulled him off the set last week because I'm producing the show, and I pulled him off the set, and I was like, hey, I saw the post and I saw the comments, and my fear, Rob, was that he didn't know of my mom's reputation, and he's a black guy, and his faults are black, and I was so terrified that he was like, yeah, I'm going to do this show with Roseanne, and doesn't remember the tweet, and now he's like, I got to get out of here. He's going to ruin my brand, because we had someone else cast ahead of time that dropped out, a black guy. He dropped out because we were pro-Israel, oddly enough. He's like, that's bad for my brand, which whatever. We're still.
I don't get that. Okay, sorry.
Well, he's in, and I said this to his agent. I said, look, no hard feelings. I think he's great, but I just got to let you know. And the news broke that day. I said, a lot of these algorithmic representations and the responses and the people that are telling him he's so great, they're foreign and they're bullshit. And he's passing up a tremendous opportunity because of what the algorithm is telling him is popular. And I just want you to know that a lot of those are bullshit. But no hard feelings. We're friends. I texted him right after, like, I get it. I pulled the actor aside last week and I said, hey, I saw the comments. And he's like, what? And I was like, the people that were like, well, you're working with a racist. And he's like, I don't care. And I was like, are you sure you're not worried? He's like, I don't care. Like, I don't listen to those people.
Good for him.
God, we cast you. That's what it's going to take, is people that know who my mom is. You know it in 5 minutes when you meet her. There's no question. And, the granddaughter on the show is a young black girl, and her mom was so hurt. And she's like, I'm going to go in there. I'm going to turn this around. I'm an influencer. I'm going to tell them that how great you are to my granddaughter. And it's like, don't do it. Don't waste your time. You don't have to defend something that isn't true.
The only thing you should ever do with trolls is feed them. Don't avoid them. I believe in finding the trolls and feeding them, but don't be afraid of them. Don't cower to them. Feed them and let them make themselves. Let them show people how stupid they are.
They are. I mean, I have been fighting trolls on the internet longer than anybody. I always joke that I was the first person ever catfished, and that's probably true, because when I don't know if you remember this, but do you remember a product called Prodigy?
Oh yeah, Oh no! Look, I'm from the. I have a 300 baud dial-up modem still in my storage facility from my old Atari 800. So yes, I know Prodigy. Yes,
You're with me. So Prodigy, I was wealthy, so I had access to stuff.
I had stolen codes. I mean, I had codes that I had borrowed from friends.
Yeah. Well, I was on the forums before anybody, and I was 14, and I met a girl, and we had a love affair on the internet for 2 years. And when I was 16, she finally came and met me at the Santa Monica Mall. I'm going to tell this story, and I'm probably going to...
And you're basically going to say that there was an extra part of her body that shouldn't have been there.
No. I probably would have handled that better. I would say 80% of her body was extra. Let's just put it that way. I'm going to tell this story because I was like,
okay.
I hope people listening to this are like, hey, this Jake seems like a nice guy. Well, that's going to end right now. I'm not proud of it, but between you and I kind of secretly am proud of it because she lied to me. We talked on the phone 2-3 hours a night for 2 years, and never once did she mention. There's a certain point where you should say, hey, just so you know, I'm 275 pounds. Are you okay with that? It's just a polite thing to do. Instead, she told me she was like the prettiest girl in school, and she won best eyes in the yearbook, and she was gorgeous. And of course, I was in love with that. And I told her the truth. I told her what I look like. I'm not the most handsome guy. I told her the truth. So anyway, we go to Santa Monica, and this is how long ago this was, Rob. I had a beeper, and I told my friend's mom, I didn't drive yet. I was 14. I was like, I'm sorry. I said 16. I was actually 14. I met her when I was 12. 14's when I was. So my friend his mom drove us to the 3rd Street Promenade in Santa Monica. We're in the mall, and I was going to meet this girl. And I gave my friend's mom my beeper. And I said, if you see 911, you meet me on Arizona and 3rd, because I was prepared that maybe she did lie.
Mm-hmm.
So I go into the...
Good for you.
I was smart. So I go to the mall, and all of a sudden I hear, Jake. And I look up on the escalator, and there was a 275-pound girl, not the girl I was expecting to meet.
Mm-hmm.
Very angry. And she came down, she gave me a hug, and she was with her friend. And I was trying to I was wrestling with myself internally. I was like, am I being too close-minded? Like, we obviously have a connection. We've talked for a long time. This is like the first girl I ever thought I was in love with. And yes, maybe she lied to me, but she's still Brooke. That's her name. She's still Brooke. And I tried for about 15 minutes. And every time I looked at her, I just got more and more angry and felt betrayed. So I told her, I said, hold on a second. I walked to the payphone, dialed my beeper, pressed 911. And I knew I had about 17, 18 minutes to kill. And I walked with her, and then I started walking ahead of her. And all of a sudden, we casually got to Arizona, which was the street. Mm-hmm. My friend's mom pulled up, and I just shouted, run. I was on a double date. I forgot to mention. My friend Clay was Brooke's friend. And I just said, run. And him and I ran. We opened the back door of his mother's Mercedes. We jumped in. My feet were still hanging out the back door. I didn't even close the door. I was dived in, headphones like you would in a Secret Service vehicle when you're getting shot at. And I screamed at her, floor it. And she floored this beautiful, they were very wealthy. They had this beautiful AMG Mercedes, and it burned out. And smoke came off the tires. My feet were hanging out, and we drove off. And that's the last thing she saw on her date.
So no.
A guy go, run, jump in a car. Tires burned and drove off. And I never talked to her again. So anyway, that's how long I've been on the internet. That was 91, maybe 92, somewhere in there. And I don't know why I was telling this story, but it was enjoyable for me to tell. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, trolls. Sorry. So I've been on the internet finding trolls since then. And I used to go on forums, and I sharpen my skills.
My wife won't even let me on Next Door Neighbor. She's like, no, you're not allowed on there anymore. Because Next Door Neighbor is the best, because these are people that don't know about the internet. Right. That don't know that they are the troll, and that they're being messed with. Right. And they are, so my wife was like, you got to stop, because we were before we moved to Nashville, we were in Kansas City, I was getting on there and I was messing with some people, and my wife's like, you got to stop that. Such and such, one of the other moms said she saw your comments on there. I'm like, oh. So I don't know, and they're dumb things. They're the dumbest things. Like those. So like one time there was this one person was complaining about that someone was stealing all her peaches. And she was saying, someone's coming to my yard and they're stealing the peaches off my tree. And it was this big thing. And I'm like, I want to comment. And then there was this other lady was complaining about this kid in the go-kart was driving around the neighborhood. And I just finally, I got a comment. So I go, yeah, I saw that kid. He almost hit me. He had a basket full of peaches in his car.
It's so fun. Did they respond?
Yeah, the people, neither of them got the fact that they had been trolled and joked on. Yes.
That's so fun. The best page on Instagram is what it's called. It's the comment. It's the comment page where they find the best comments and highlight them. Because, it's both humbling and rewarding to read the comment section on the internet, because it's humbling because you always think you're the smartest person, funniest person in the world. And then you go in the comment section and realize you're just average. And there's people a million times funnier than you.
Well, no, just go to YouTube. Those comments are brain dead.
They are. That's why I love YouTube. That place, that's like, big fish, small pond in there, my comments. But people on the internet, I mean, my God, people are so funny. And trolling is enjoyable and it's funny. And if you don't take it seriously, I mean, there's nothing more fun. And I want to bring that back because it really has, you look at the internet today, the comment section is just really dark, and it's not, like you can almost.
Well, I've been missing my favorite commenter on X, so hopefully he comes back.
I appreciate it. It's hard because, like I said, when it's trolling and it's fun and you're like getting a little arguments, like I'm all for that. But when I literally can hear the Psycho strings, from the movie Psycho, like that violence, like some of these things I read and I'm like, this is a evil or like really, really dangerous person that I'm arguing with. And this is not fun. This is dark. And I would say, I'm to the point now, we had Jonathan Cahn on our podcast. I don't know if you know who he is, but he kind of blew my mind. That's a lot of people say that was the best episode we ever did. It's called The Dragon's Prophecy. And, by the end of that show, I was like, he might be onto something. He's talking about basically end times.
That's my wife. My wife's like, all the time. End times. We're in end times. I'm like,
I think she might be right. But end times, my mom always tells me end times, it means end of the wicked. So we'll be fine. It's kind of like our own version of the rapture, but it's not fun anymore. And when I go on and, I argue with Groypers, the Fuentes crew a lot, they're not fun. They're really dark and demonic. And
well, they're not getting laid. Of course they're not fun.
Well, the kids not get incels not getting laid used to be some of the most fun people to troll until, some really troll that went up, shot up a school or whatever. But, I never had I never did that. But like back in the days, the incels were kind of fun to torment. But no, now, like, I don't want to mess with these kids like that. They'll show up at my door. They're not well. I'm hoping.
On that happy note.
The good news is it's end times.
All right. I will put a link to that episode in the show notes.
Yeah, actually, it is a really fascinating interview, all joking aside. He wrote Dragon's Prophecy, and Dinesh D'Souza just made a movie, came out a few months ago, about that book. And we had Dinesh and Jonathan on back to back. And it's pretty fascinating. At the very least, it's a good podcast to listen to, whether you believe what he says or not. He knows his history. He knows the facts. He's got a pretty interesting way of bringing the Bible to life. He is a evangelical Jew. So he's a really interesting guy. He's basically a Jew for Jesus, which there's not a lot of those. And, he's pretty phenomenal. So I highly recommend that episode.
All right. Jake, anything that we didn't talk about you want to work in here?
Well, yeah, I would just say, to wrap it up, I really liked when we were talking about the early days of podcasting and pirate radio and kind of that spirit. And
that's what got me into podcasting. I was one that used to listen to pirate radio, and that's how I saw podcasting too when I got into this.
Yeah, it's really cool. And, I know that there's different ways, like any medium, there's different ways to do it. And there's different ways to stand out. And there are people that are brilliant. Like, again, Sword and Scale is a brilliant true crime podcast. And there's other ones that are great. But there's a million different ways to podcast. There's a million different people doing it. But I do feel that spirit kind of slowly dying. I do feel like it's becoming what happened to FM radio and even AM radio and Stern. Stern was my idol. And the last 6 or 7 years, like I don't recognize him anymore. And I feel like there's a point where you get kind of corporate and you kind of get in your own echo chambers and you kind of lose touch with the people and you start spouting things that you think, that you believe that aren't necessarily, you're losing your open-mindedness. Maybe you're not questioning things. You've found your niche, however you say it. And it just, if anyone's listening that's thinking about podcasting, you have that sort of guerrilla spirit and you have that pirate radio energy, like get into it now, because we are a dying breed and we have to maintain some share of the podcasting space, even if it's just 1% or half of 1%. We have to have that. You can never give that up. If you have it, this is your call to get into it. I'm telling you to get into it. Even if you just have 100 bit, get into it. Because if this becomes corporate, if this goes the way of learning. But remember cable TV, when it first started, it was really edgy, and now it's all TSC and ads, and it's all corporate too. Like every time something new medium comes up, it's exciting and people are edgy and they risk things. And then eventually it just becomes a big advertising spin and corporate, and it's whitewashed and it's boring. And I don't want to happen to podcast.
Well, thank you for bringing your mom into podcasting.
You're welcome.
I was a fan growing up, and it was just great to see her podcasting and being part of this community that I've been part of for 20 years and seeing her come in and it's a name that everyone recognizes, which is great for the space. But more importantly, it's your mom just unfiltered. And it's so fun. I mean, as a fan, it really is. And I've been lucky enough to get to know you the last 2.5 years in the little jokes you hide inside the show from time to time are I love those. So.
I appreciate it. Yeah, it's fun. It's fun to do a podcast. I always say it's the only mother-son podcast that I know of. And I think that makes us a little bit different. It's not just a celebrity podcast. And a lot of people thought when she would do it, it would be like to our detriment. They'd be like, oh, it's Roseanne. She's going to talk to comics and she's going to talk about the TV show days. And I think a lot of people tuned in, and then it was me and her just spouting crazy shit about Antarctica. And they're like, what is this? I'm out. But we found our audience and it's cool. I love it. I love that. I like that you get those jokes that I reference. That makes me happy. Sometimes I feel like it's just her and I in that room. And it's nice when people are listening and repeat it back to me. It's a very cool feeling because it is just me and my mom in the room. We don't do it live.
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times. I was like mowing the yard and I was listening, and then I was like, I had to stop the mower, pull the phone out, and text you. I was like, I love what you just said.
Well, we'll be back. I promise we will be back soon. You got my spirit back. I want to start getting back into it.
All right. Thank you again, Jake, for coming on. Thanks again to Jake for being a guest on the show. And please check out the links in the show notes for episode 238. Per the interview, it was recorded using Libsyn's Connect service. I then took the mix down track, which I downloaded as uncompressed wave format, and then uploaded it to Adobe Podcast and used the enhanced speech service with a 75% setting on speech and 10% setting on background. Downloaded that file, dropped it in Levelator, and then did the edits of that file in GarageBand. If you have any questions on that process or any comments, email me, podcast411@gmail.com. And now into the news, tips, and tricks segment of the show. First up is something I recorded for the feed back in mid-September, but it was cut and never aired. And I've been wanting to put this out. So right now, while I'm a free agent, I could put this out. Here we go. In other sad news in the podcasting space was, of course, Charlie Kirk's assassination. It really was an attack on free speech. Nothing is less tolerant than killing a person for saying something that the murderer did not like. And anyone that celebrated that in any way was celebrating the death of not just a man, but a free speech. People don't have to like what he said, but at least he was trying to encourage debate and conversations in the one place they should and need to be encouraged, college campuses. Here is a few select quotes from bigger name podcasters and celebrities I found on this assassination. From Cenk Uygur, the founder of Young Turks. He said, quote, A lot of people on the left didn't like Charlie Kirk for what they thought was hate speech. Okay, but what's more hateful than murdering someone? So if you were that opposed to him for that reason, shouldn't you be even more outraged at what happened to him, which was pure hate, unquote. From Mike Rowe, quote, "It feels like someone shot the First Amendment. I think something extraordinary is going to happen in the days and weeks ahead, something that never comes through on those videos. You see a guy in a tent, you see someone on the other side, and you see the very thing that this country was built on: debate, disagreement, and exchange of ideas. Charlie Kirk went into the lion's den. He was brave. I wonder if he was fearless. I wonder if he was scared. I wonder if he just did it anyway," unquote. From Whitney Cummings, quote, "If you are happy someone was publicly executed because they didn't share your beliefs, congrats, you're the Taliban," unquote. From Tim Allen, quote, "I continue this week with deep sense of my helplessness overall. I turn to reading Marcus Aurelius. Quote, if it's not right, don't do it. If it's not true, don't say it. And, quote, waste no time arguing what a good man should be one," unquote, unquote. From Stephen A. Smith, quote, "I don't care what his political beliefs were. I don't care what he felt. I care about the fact that a man was gunned down in front of 2 of his children who are 5 years of age or less, that he's dead at the age of 31, that his wife is a widow, that his children are fatherless because his ideas and his beliefs differed from somebody else, apparently. And then I'm going online and I'm seeing people celebrating it. Shame, shame on you," unquote. From Piers Morgan, quote, "This was an appalling assault on free speech and democracy. Charlie always welcomed debate with anyone. This is disgusting and heartbreaking," unquote. Those 6 people, from 3 on the left, 3 on the right, all united in opposition to a disgusting and horrible murder, which was also an attack on free speech. Sadly, bad events often lead to bad laws or regulations. As a free speech absolutist, I've said many times there is no hate speech, just speech that some people hate. To which, in the U.S., we say, deal with it. It is still protected free speech. The line that can't be crossed is when someone is promoting, inciting violence. When someone says person A should be shot, that is inciting violence and crosses the line. But saying disgusting things is still protected speech in the U.S., all bets off in the U.K. That does not mean people can't be fired for what they say. That is a private decision by the employer, and if they feel comments hurt their business, they can take action as needed. But not because of legal action from the government or the threat of legal action from the government. There are lots of podcasts with, quote, offensive, unquote, content, because let's face it, some people are really, really easily offended. If someone is easily offended, they should not listen to podcasts, definitely not political podcasts. It really is that simple. Silencing free speech with, quote, unquote, hate speech laws, even the disgusting speech of those celebrating the murder of a man who tried to open a dialogue with the other side, is not what Charlie Kirk or anyone who truly believes in free speech would want. I hope no one stops doing their podcast out of fear from the other side. I hope podcasters keep bringing on guests from all sides of the political spectrum, like Bill Maher does on Club Random, or Joe Rogan, or Roseanne Barr, or the All In podcast, to name just a few. Shows that make efforts to embrace all sides. I hope podcasters keep engaging with those that have different opinions from their own. When that happens, the world is a better place. And after the horrible week of September 8th, we need the world to be in a better place. That wasn't the actual recording, but that was something I did record back in September, but it never made it out on the feed. And I wanted to re-record it now, as I just felt it needed to be said. Moving on in the news, it's a new year, and a new year means updating your copyright. If you have not updated your copyright to say 2026, snap, get to it. And speaking of copyright, one tradition from the feed was the first episode of each year we would go over new content that had its copyright expire and enter into the public domain. Betty Boop this year enters into the public domain, meaning you could make a horror slasher video with Betty Boop, Popeye, and Winnie the Pooh. Those last two entered into the public domain in the past few years. Per books entering into the public domain, which you could do a podcast around, some of the bigger titles are The Maltese Falcon, The Murder at Viraji by Agatha Christie, The Little Engine That Could, Ash Wednesday by T.S. Eliot, the first 4 Nancy Drew novels, As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner, and many others. Any of these you could record as a podcast series or do some derivative work thereof. In addition to Betty Boop, there was Blondie and Dagwood, also entering the public domain from the cartoon world. If you are looking for some films to pull clips from, All Quiet on the Western Front is now in the public domain, as is Animal Cracker with the Marx Brothers, Murder by Alfred Hitchcock, Hell's Angels, directed by Howard Hughes, Free and Easy with Buster Keaton, it being his first speaking role, Anna Christie, which was Greta Garbo's first speaking role, King of Jazz, which was Bing Crosby's first film, and The Big Trail, which was John Wayne's first leading role. There are musical compositions that also entered into the public domain, 4 songs from Ira and George Gershwin, I Got Rhythm, I've Got a Crush on You, But Not for Me, and Embraceable You. Other musical compositions out there that are now in the public domain, Georgia on My Mind, Dream a Little Dream of Me, On the Sunny Side of the Street, Just a Gigolo, and The Royal Welch Foliers by John Philip Sousa. Those, again, are a few highlights of musical compositions that entered into the public domain. If you want recorded music, then we need to go to music recordings from 1925. It is 100 years on the music recording part. Nobody Knows the Trouble I've Seen, Sweet Georgia Brown, Everybody Loves My Baby, But My Baby Don't Love Nobody But Me, the St. Louis Blues, and Yes Sir, That's My Baby. Those are among the more popular recordings from 1925, now available for you to find and use. Again, you have to find the ones that were recorded in 1925 or earlier, not versions that were recorded later. If you want to learn more about those entering the public domain, you can look for the link in the show notes. It's for the Duke Law. So Duke Law, thank you again for updating that each year and letting the public know what is now in the public domain. I'm going to end the news there. Usually I have a segment, Where Have I Been? Well, for the past 18 and a half years, I was one place where I am no more. Per where I'm going, well, I just want to talk about Podfest in January in Orlando. That's next week. I am speaking on Friday, January 16th in the morning. I am doing my State of Podcasting 2026 session. I will go over what's really going on in the space, giving real inside numbers, plus other insight from 21 plus years in the space. I will put more time into this presentation than any other I've ever done because I got more time available. You will not want to miss it. And as with all presentations I've done over the past 20 plus years, I make the slides freely available and release them under Creative Commons BY-SOSCC BY-SA license, just like this podcast. I just believe all this info should be freely available for podcasters and not locked down. Again, you will want to see that session, and you should also attend the Hall of Fame ceremony as well. Thanks, Mark, for inviting me to sit at your table. Again, looking forward to seeing folks at Podfest in January. After that, likely I'll be attending NRB here in February in Nashville. Nothing else planned beyond that. For full and fair disclosure, at this point, this is my day job. The thoughts and opinions shared on this podcast are solely those of my own and my guests. They do not reflect the thoughts, opinions, or official positions of any other third party. When quoting anything said on this podcast, please give attribution to Rob at Podcast 411 or to the guests per how their name appears in the title for this episode. This show is presented under a CC BY-SA license, Grocket, if you're not sure what it is. Finally, don't forget to send in your feedback for anything said or that should have been said in this episode. You can record that feedback and email to me, podcast411@gmail.com. Or you can call me, 206 Mom Help. That's 206-666-4357. Until the next time, ciao.